This is the product catalog setup window. This is a pretty key feature for all of QPro and how things work. To create new sales orders, new kits, new inventory items, new purchase orders, all of those modules use the product catalog because the product catalog contains pricing information, it contains SKU numbers, descriptions of what the products are and what they look like and all those kinds of things. And so a very key module to this whole system is the product catalog. Having said that, the people that manage the product catalog need to be very detail oriented. Quite often, if you allow sales reps to modify this part of the program, it can become very cluttered, duplication, things of that nature. So the people that are dealing here will usually recommend one or two people within the company manage this, and that it's done in a very precise manner so that when people are looking for products from the catalog, that they can be found easily. The first screen here deals with manufacturer. You should know that before we continue, every product definition contains a manufacturer, a description, and a color. And those three pieces of information together is what define a product. And you'll see that as we move along here. So the first thing is the manufacturer. We can add a new one here if we would like. So let's do Emser. And if we click the plus button here, you'll see that there's some additional information that you can attach to a manufacturer. You don't have to, but you can if you would like. And you simply hit the save button and it will add that manufacturer to your list. You can see as we click on any of these over here now, here's Mohawk. You can see that there's a description here of Lansing, and then underneath Lansing there is a color called Aspen. Okay, so you've got manufacturer, description, color. These three things all define a product together. So if we were to enter in a new product, we already have our manufacturer here. Let's just put in a description of Wind Song like that. I hit the plus button here. That brings up a new screen on the right hand side that allows me to define a new description. So all of these fields here are the attributes of a description. And the available attributes depend on the product type. You'll notice that if I change this product type from carpet to accessories, notice that some of the fields disappeared off of the screen, because when you set up a product type, you tell it which fields are available to be displayed. So let's change it back to carpet and you'll see the fields reappear back on the screen here. So depending on the type will be the available fields to fill in. For most items, type is required, pricing units is required, and width and quantity is normally required for at least for roll goods and for things that come in boxes. This is not required for each type of things where you're selling it by the piece or the item. But in general, these are the main pieces of information that are required. So let's just select a unit here of square yards, and we'll put a width in here for a piece of carpet of 12 feet. Now the next box is down here. The unique identifier is a unique number, almost like an SKU number, but for a description. It's a unique identifier for a description. In the B2B, FC B2B world, this identifier is used to update a group of colors all at one time. So it is kind of important when doing electronic updating through B2B. Description number, this can just be an identifier. Private label, some operations require that there are private labels so that when they print out point of sale tagging and things of that nature, that the private label comes out instead of the actual name used by the supplier, and that way makes it more difficult for them to price shop. So the private label would be printed on tags. It would also be the name that you would look things up for on the sales order. That's what the private label is. This section here has all to do with pricing. The retail price, you'll notice that if you click down, the retail price formulas are here. So you can say, I want the retail price to always be calculated by this formula. Or if you put in an exact amount, like let's just say we're doing square yards here, so let's just do $25 a square yard. That means that that product will always be priced at $25 a square yard when you're filling out a sales order. Or if you have 0.0 in here, what that means is use the default formulas that will be selected, and there is an order to that. If you go to the retail pricing formula video, it explains more about that. Most of the time people will leave this to be 0 so that the pricing formulas will be automatically selected for them. Then you have both the roll cost and the cut cost. If this were hard surface, this would be box or carton cost versus pallet cost. Same thing here. This tells you whether you want to use the roll as a default or the cut as a default. So you can store two costs, plus you can say which one you want to be the default. Promotional pricing has start and end dates, and so you have a roll and a cut cost for that also. So that means that you can have a promotional price that's going to start and end during a certain period of time. B2B also uses this field, and sometimes the suppliers will send promotional prices automatically, and that basically will override any of the default pricing during that period of time. Future pricing, sometimes people don't want a certain price to be activated till a certain day, and you can specify that in here. Also, this is used by B2B. A lot of suppliers will say, here's the upcoming price, but it won't be active for another 3 or 4 weeks. They do that because they have such a large customer base that they couldn't put the exact price out the night before for everybody because their price lists are so massive and they have to start weeks ahead of time sometimes. So that's why this feature is in here, because it's B2B. These other fields are mostly informational at this point. So you can add items in here, informational items that will be saved. Same with these fields down here, backing, freight, shipping weight. And in the URL fields, these will be used in the future to display things such as pictures and product spec sheets and things of that nature. There are more than just one available. There's 2 or 3 that we allow you to put in if you would like. Down at the very bottom, a couple of important fields. If a product is dropped, that means that it can no longer be ordered. And sometimes you want to still see the product. Sample included, that means that there is a sample of this item out on the floor that you can use. And then obviously you have close, cancel, and save buttons down here at the bottom. So put in the appropriate data. Some of it's minimal that you need, at least these 4 boxes up here at the top. And then you just hit the save button. And if we did it all right, it should save the description for us. So now I have this description. And let me just add one more thing while we're on description. Out on our training site, there is a page out here called Recommended Description Name Patterns. So it's on this training and instruction video site for QPro. If you click on Description Name Patterns, there's this document here that gives some recommendations on how to name things, such as your roll or soft goods and hard surface, and some of the strategies that you should take when naming and choosing a description for a product. So if we come back over to our description here, you'll notice that this description can be fairly long. So there's a lot of stuff that you can put in there. Typically the colors are a lot shorter than the description fields. Okay, so now if we want to create a color for this description, and usually there are multiple colors for each description. Let's just create one here. I'm going to type in, let's just do verde, which is green in Spanish, right? So we hit the plus sign, and you'll see that it takes on the attributes of its parent. The square yards, the 12, the type is carpet. Color cannot be a different type than its parent. Here's some of the other fields that you'll want to look at: the private label, the bin location, SKU numbers, and color numbers. These are all kind of important things, but they're not required. Just the pricing units and the width per carton and the type. Reorder, so this has to do with a feature where you're able to define when a product needs to be reordered. When it hits a certain minimum number quantity, it will notify the user, and then it will identify in this field how much you use to reorder. So that's how these fields work. Again, you have the pricing just as you do with the descriptions, and the informational fields, same as the descriptions, dropped, samples included. Those can be different, obviously, from your descriptions. So when I get here, I can just hit the save button again, and it should save me a color. So now I've got a verde color in here, and if I want another one, rojo. So now I've got rojo here, and if I don't need to save anything else, I can just continue to make my colors the same exact way. This is how you go through and manually add products to the catalog. Now, there's another video that talks about adding things to the catalog through FC B2B. I encourage you to watch that video. The Shaw, we kind of did that, and so you can see that all of these products were added automatically through a B2B download. And you can see that this has 3 different colors that go with it. On this one, I guess another 3. This one would have quite a few more colors. If you look at those, it's a piece of carpet. Now, one thing I will call your attention to here, you'll see that there's a dash and then the number after it. If it's a hard surface product, that will be the number of square feet per box. If it's a roll product, the last numbers behind the dash will be the width of the roll. If you're importing things through B2B, those things will automatically be added for you. So that's the product catalog, and that should give you a good start.